Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to this seminar organized by the Renew Europe group in the European Committee of the Regions. For those of you who aren't familiar with party politics at the European level, Renew Europe is the new name for what for 10 years was the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe. I'm standing in for the president of our group, Bart Somers, who was going to be chairing this event. But just last week, he's from Flanders, he's Flemish, Belgian, and just last week, after many weeks of long and difficult negotiations, they reached a deal for a new government in Flanders, and he was sworn in as vice president, what they call vice minister president, and just this morning they are presenting the government in the Flemish Parliament, so he is unable to come, and he sends his apologies. I'm Sean O'Kernean, I'm Secretary General of the Renew Europe group in the Committee of the Regions. And we have I should say before we start, we have interpretation in English, French, and Swedish. I don't know how many Swedes are here. Most Swedes do also communicate in English, but one of the options we had as a backup was that one of our Swedish members would chair the meeting. Unfortunately, that's not possible either. But you're welcome, obviously, to express yourself or listen in any of those three languages. So we're organizing this event on blockchain technology and what it might mean for the delivery of public services at subnational level around Europe. Now, by the way, another practical matter, this seminar is going to be taped and live streamed in case you want to either check it later or invite someone to watch who's not able to attend. Blockchain technology is something that more and more people are talking about, and in particular about how it's going to change our society. I'm someone who's very interested in science and technology, but until recently I was rather frustrated that a lot of people are talking about what blockchain technology is going to do, but it was very difficult to find out what blockchain technology actually is. So I'm going to try to describe it in one sentence, but also, even better, I have found a TED Talk. I don't know if some of you are aware of what TED Talks are. They're like lectures by experts, which you can find on the internet. And there's one TED Talk which I thought was really well done, explaining what blockchain technology is, and we will start the seminar showing you a 6-minute clip of this video, but not just yet. I'm going to tell you about a word in English which is used a lot in accounting. The word is ledger. Apparently it comes from Old Dutch. But a ledger in English in accounting means a book where you write on one side all the money that comes in and on the other side all the money that goes out for every transaction. And transactions are exchanges that are happening all the time, also on the internet. And that's where blockchain technology comes in. It's all about building trust in transactions online. Now, imagine you're buying a house and you want to know the history of the house. Well, that's where the video picks up. So if we can show this video, Matthew, and we'll watch 6 minutes of it, and I'll let him explain the rest of it. Richie Etwaro, in case you want to watch the whole video afterwards, you can see up at the top there, Richie Etwaro is the one giving this talk.
The problem with the ledgers that we use today...
Sorry, could you just start that again at 8 minutes 02? And you may Let me just check one practical thing, Matthew. Do we know if it's better to listen on with the headphones? We don't know that. Okay. You might, the volume sometimes in this room on the speakers is not very loud, so I would suggest you first try to put these headphones on, and you might be able to hear the video better. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just have to work with the speakers, and I would urge everyone to be as quiet as possible. Thank you.
Titles in the United States have errors in them. The problem with the ledgers that we use today, which we depend on to trust, many things, not just houses, is that someone, as easily as they can write a record on the ledger, they can delete a record from the ledger. Can you imagine buying a house and you go to the homeowner and they go, yes, of course, here's the title. I've kept all the records of the title. Please have it. Would you trust them? No, because the information can be tampered with. The ledgers that we use today to transact with, whether it's a house, a car, the rights to some piece of art, someone who owns a piece of intellectual property or a patent, are tamperable. You can tamper with them. And what makes it worse is not only are they tamperable as in you can remove a record, you could also add a record or edit a record. As you can see here, that chimney violation that happens to this house somehow magically is now a new chimney. I bet you'll be paying a price you don't want to pay for that house. So we have this capability called a ledger. We use it, it's tamperable, and we could trust a little bit, but we're sort of in this state of commerce where we have to trust but verify. Anybody knows who said trust but verify? All right, good. We'll add it to the comment section as well. Okay? The truth is, today, as a civilization, when we start companies or we start transactions, we start with an automatic assumption that the counterparty cannot be trusted. When we start companies or we start transactions today, we start with the automatic assumption that the counterparty cannot be trusted. It almost feels normal to us. Kind of feels like, oh yeah, I mean, why would we not do that? What does it have to be that way? It's just something that we've become accustomed to. And the way we've gone about it is we establish these things called intermediaries. It's a fancy word for middlemen and middlewomen. Intermediaries. These are entities that are responsible for keeping a centralized copy of the ledgers in all of commerce, and they facilitate the brokering of the relationship between those who are looking to trust and those who are looking to be trusted. Examples of intermediaries are things like banks. The Department of Motor Vehicle, it's a great intermediary for identity. Mortgage title companies. Credit reporting agencies. These are all intermediaries. This is just a small example of the intermediaries that we deal with today. And the reason why we deal with them is because we simply can't trust the ledgers that we have. Now, the intermediaries don't actually get us all the way there. If you think about operating in zero trust, which commerce would come to a stalling halt, and abundant trust, the intermediaries kind of get us to a point where we can manufacture some and the rest of it comes from the gut. The fact is, commerce and the state that it is in today, we sort of exist in this trust gap. Now, I should remind you that the oversimplification is still happening. Let's talk a little bit about blockchain to get a sense as to what blockchain is and what it does. As you would imagine, blockchain has a ledger as well. Now, the blockchain ledger is an epic upgrade on the ledger that we have today. There's a couple of things that are very, very interesting about it. The first thing that's interesting about the blockchain ledger is every record that's written on a blockchain ledger has a unique key that goes with it. Now, you don't need to get into the details of cryptography or hash keys, etc. Just trust me when I tell you that there's a really, really awesome, unhackable key that's in every record on a blockchain ledger. The other thing that happens to blockchain is that every record is written and stamped by the trusted party that wrote that record. Aha! You can see how this is a little bit different from the crappy ledger we use today, isn't it? Here's the major invention. When the next record is written, everything from the first record, including the key and the contents of the second record, is put into that formula, and out comes a key for the second record. You can see there's some dependency now. When the third record is written, the third record, the same thing happens. All of the contents of record number 1, including the key, and the contents of record number 2, including the key, goes into the formula, and out comes a key for the third record. You can see how the dependency from one record to another is different from what we do today. Now again, we're in the oversimplification zone. There's going to be a lot of comments about cryptography and hash keys. Yes, all that is important, but this is the fundamental difference. And this happens on and on and on and on. Essentially, technology making sure that every single record, we can see who wrote the record, we can add a key to that record, and we can build dependencies between one record and another, essentially chaining all of the records together. Aha! Now you see where the word chain comes from in blockchain. And here's what happens. If someone that doesn't like that failed chimney inspection decides to remove that, very quickly with an algorithm, you can apply it and look at the information and recognize that it was tampered with. That is the difference between how we exist today as commerce and how we will exist tomorrow in the future. Essentially, we're in a world where we can start to take advantage of a ledger that is immutable. Meaning, yes, you can mess with it, but it's really easy to tell the ones that were tampered with as opposed to the ones that are not tampered with. Now, blockchains usually exist in what is called communities.
Okay, so there we go. There's a quick introduction to what blockchain technology is, and now that we have a better idea, I would like to introduce our guest speakers. Lucas Repa on my left, who is Senior Policy Officer at the European Commission, DG Connect. With a background in corporate and banking law, Lucas joined the European Commission in 2018, where he works on blockchain technology and fintech, financial technology. And he previously worked at the European Commission's Director General for Competition. To my right, there's Sonia Zvedeniuk, who is Project Manager at Pillar Project, where she helps coordinate strategy for the adoption of Pillar's digital identity solutions by municipalities and businesses. She also works in the asset management division of the 2030 Group. Sonia's academic background is in politics and international relations. She worked for 2 members of parliament in Australia, including the Minister for Communications. And before moving to London, she worked at a Geneva-based NGO, non-governmental organization, dedicated to monitoring the performance of the United Nations. So, without further ado, given that the clock is moving on, Lucas, I hand over to you to give us your presentation. Thank you.
Just going to grab the... So again, my name is Lucas Repa. I work for DG Connect. I worked also a year at the University of Berkeley in the Silicon Valley, and I arrived there in 2017 when the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency hype was at its peak. Every student would really invest in cryptocurrencies on the smartphones, and I was there to conduct research on fintech, and boy, my God, I have to have a look at this blockchain thing. This is something really exciting. So for 1 year, I was enrolled in a course on blockchain, and this is how I got into it, and I still find it fascinating today. So the blockchain is really the promise to do things we've been doing with classic databases in a more effective and more reliable way. And the European Commission has started to look into how we can use this technology beyond Bitcoin in 2016, basically 2016, starting really in 2017. So it's still quite a new policy area for the European Commission. And meanwhile, not only DG Connect, but also a large number of other DGs in the European Commission are piloting blockchain and are looking into the capabilities of blockchain. So we have DG RTD, GRC, we have Just, we have Home, we have Grow. So there's a large number, FISMA in particular as well, even Trade, that are looking into how can we use blockchain technologies. And our role is to coordinate this a little bit and to see to it that the public money is spent in a coherent way so that we make most of the funds that we have and that our policies are consistent. So I stop here about my background and I start off with what's our strategy. So our strategy is nothing less than making Europe a leader in this niche of technology. We want Europe to be the best ones in blockchain technology because we think that this technology is something that fits our very fragmented heterogeneous setup that we have. We have governance at many levels. We are governed at local, regional level, overlapping competencies. Belgium is a wonderful example for the complexity that we have in Europe. And data are typically in Europe distributed among many different sources. So it's not the typical centralized data model that the Americans or the Chinese are applying, but our data are fragmented over many, many sources. And the blockchain is a wonderful instrument really to bring this data together. First of all, we worked on creating a joint political vision because 2016, 2017, everybody thought blockchain is only about Bitcoin. So first we had to form our understanding and we created a group which is called the European Blockchain Partnership, which is today a group of 29 European member states plus Norway plus Liechtenstein who work together to see how can we use blockchain for sectors other than payments. And they have a political group and a technical group. And I'll say a bit more about it in a minute. Then we have strived to create a public-private partnership by setting up in March, so it's not so long ago, the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, which brings together the industry on one hand and policymakers and regulators on the other hand, the INATBA as we call it with a wonderful acronym. So we have the European Blockchain Partnership, partnership of member states, we have a public-private partnership, the INATBA, and then we're trying really to connect the expertise that is out there in Europe on blockchain. We're trying to bring our experts together from different ecosystems, from Berlin to Helsinki to Paris to Bucharest. We all try to bring them together in this European Blockchain Observatory and Forum, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we are also investing quite significantly in our startups. We're investigating in research and innovation in blockchain. And I'll provide you a few figures about that in a second. And then finally, as DG Connect, we're trying to work with other directorate generals like DG Home or DG FISMA on improvements to the existing legal framework so that distributed ledger technologies and blockchains can fit into the regulatory frameworks that we have created over the last 10 years with a central database in mind. And there are a couple of things that we need to iron out, starting with how we interpret the GDPR for decentralized technologies to how do you apply jurisdictional questions in smart contracts. I'll come to all of that in a second. So first of all, this political partnership, it was brought into life on the 10th of April 2018 by joint declaration. We meanwhile have 29 member states. And one of the most important deliverables for this European blockchain partnership is to create, not only to talk, but to create something. Namely, we want to create a backbone blockchain infrastructure for the public sector in Europe, which can be used for certain cross-border services. Think about cooperation of fiscal authorities in exchanging sensitive data. Think about the auditing, the notarization of documents that the Court of Auditor of Europe has to review for funding, structural cohesion funds, and so forth. Think about university diplomas. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a way to certify and to ascertain ourselves that some candidate from another country far away in Europe claims to have this fantastic university diploma. We want to be sure that it really exists, this diploma, that it's not fake. How can we make sure that it is genuine without having a central repository that groups all diplomas in Europe, which would be impossible to achieve. So the four use cases which this public service infrastructure has are at the moment in development. We're working on them, and we want to roll out the infrastructure in the beginning of 2020. Here you have again a slide I've been running already forward about European blockchain services infrastructure, and infrastructure which is geared towards the public sector in the beginning. But our idea would be to expand it gradually from the public sector also for use cases for public-private partnerships. The use cases, again, notarization of documents for auditing purposes. We've heard in the TED Talk that that's one of the strengths of the blockchain. The blockchain, you could call the blockchain a digital notary public. Whatever goes into the blockchain is immutable. It's certified, you can review it, it cannot be changed anymore. That's very useful for spending of public funds, structural funds, and so forth. Certification of diploma, same thing, you certify the diploma, goes into the blockchain, is hashed, cannot be changed anymore. Trusted data sharing for value-added taxes and fiscal use cases. And then we have a fourth use case, which is actually very, very interesting, has a lot of potential, which is about self-sovereign identity. And I think you're going to hear more about the concept of using the blockchain for identity services in a minute by Sonia. Our stakeholder forum has engaged the blockchain community. I think it's fair to say that all ecosystems of blockchain coders and developers in Europe are meanwhile connected to this observatory online and offline. Online, we have about 2,000 experts in Europe that meanwhile connected online and that use this forum for blogging, for exchanging ideas, for connecting, for finding resources. And we have identified 770 blockchain projects, most of them in Europe, and we have mapped them. So if you go on the website of the observatory and you click on the map of Europe, you can actually find all these blockchain projects. You can click on them, you can find out what they're doing. The observatory has also issued a number of reports on key issues that affect the technology, starting with how can you use blockchain innovation in Europe to how does it comply with the data protection regulation and how can it be used in the public services sector. Blockchain for government and public services, a report that had 3,200 downloads. That was 6 months ago. I think meanwhile we have already many, many more downloads. So please check out the website of the observatory. It's really very useful source of information. If you're interested to follow this policy area, we have 7 more reports and 6 more workshops upcoming. The next one will be in Brussels on the 29th of October. We'll talk about how to use blockchain technology for cybersecurity. This will be again in the building of DG Connect in Beaulieu 25. So it's with a subway, it's 15 minutes from here. We're going to leave you the slides so you can take a look later at the details. And then finally, the GRC of the European Commission, so which is our research think tank, has issued also a number of reports about blockchain technology. And actually on the 8th of October, so that is today, if I'm not mistaken, that's right. As we speak, in the Parlement, they are presenting the latest report. So we have also excellent researchers looking into this topic. So I just brought this slide because it's quite helpful to understand where is blockchain technology being deployed in Europe. Where do we use this funny ledger really? And as you will see, a lot of it goes into cybersecurity applications for making all kinds of online interactive tools more robust. And for the Internet of Things. Why the Internet of Things? Well, think about supply chains. You have a mango that's being produced somewhere in Africa and it has to be shipped to a supermarket and sold in Brussels, downtown Brussels. There are about 200 people that are involved in the agricultural field to the distribution at the retail level. And you want to make sure that this avocado is being produced and transported in a sustainable way, right? You want to have a low carbon footprint. So how do you ensure that this mango is not, or this avocado is not mixed up with other avocados and mangoes that have not been produced in a sustainable way? Well, you put a little tracker on the box at the field where they are harvested, and you follow the tracker. And the tracker is like a QR code, it's another chip that creates data. Now what the blockchain very well does, it takes the data and it records them on this immutable ledger, and it keeps this electronic track wherever the box goes. So when you go to a supermarket, like Carrefour already does it for some products, you will see that they have a QR code on the product. You take your smartphone, you scan it, and the scan will allow you to trace back where the product comes. It will tell you exactly how it has been shipped, where it came from. So it gives the consumer much more information it could ever print on a package. And to make that information reliable, we need a blockchain. Okay? So that's why we have a lot of investments going into Internet of Things applications. I've brought you one example where I wanted to show to you how blockchain can be used in the public sector. And that's an interesting example. It comes from Spain. So the municipality of Barcelona prides itself that 70% of the actions that the mayor takes come actually from citizens. So they are developed bottom up based on proposals from citizens. Now you ask yourself, how does the mayor get reliable information from citizens? In the age of Facebook and of Cambridge Analytica and of hacking of data, you can be worried, and rightly worried, that some of the information it feeds up to the mayor might be manipulated information. So how do you make sure that the people that are using this information tool, that are feeding in the information to the administration of Barcelona, that these data exist in reality, that they are not fake identities, and that they genuinely fed in that information? Well, this is where the blockchain technology can come in again. First of all, this is what Barcelona is now piloting. You can use the blockchain technology to certify the identity of the citizen. And as a second step, you can make sure that the information that is fed into the IT application of the municipality has not been manipulated, that is genuine. And this is done exactly as was shown in the TED Talk. You feed in information, 5 seconds later, the next citizen feeds in information, your information gets hashed. With that information of the next citizen, it gets hashed in the next one. So it becomes an immutable ledger of information that is fed up to the mayor of the city of Barcelona. So when the administration of Barcelona takes that information, they can be sure that 15% of the population have said that, 20% of the population have said that. So that's a very nice use case, which is currently developed by a project that is co-funded by the European Commission under Horizon 2020. This is the multi-stakeholder platform, the INATBA. We have founded it in March. And on the 3rd of April, we had a global launch in the Residence Palace just around the corner. Commissioner Maria Gabriel came to launch it. She held a great speech there, and meanwhile the organization has grown to around 200 members. They have 13 working groups, each of them specialized in a different area, and they are not only European, well, 80% of the members are still European, but the ambition is to make them a truly global organization. And they have members from Japan, they have members from Canada, from North America, Latin America. So the international ambition of this association is clearly there, and we're supporting them as much as we can to deliver on that. One big event that we're working on for a long time now is the upcoming Global Blockchain Conference Convergence, which will take place in the beautiful city of Malaga in Spain from the 11th to the 13th of November. You're all very warmly welcomed and invited. Civil servants can get entry tickets for free. So if you want to register, there is a specific link that you can use to register for free. You don't have to pay an entrance fee. Flight tickets are still cheap. I just bought one, around 150 euros. And these 2 days of investment are, if you're interested in blockchain, it's the best you can do. They will go through all the use cases. We'll have blockchain in the energy sector, blockchain for smart cities, blockchain for the financial sector, blockchain for token economy, blockchain for supply chains, blockchain for retail, blockchain for whatever you could think of. So there will be experts there, they will present, the startups will be there, and the policymakers. You will have policymakers, the representatives of the 29 member states of the blockchain partnership will all be there, and we will have speakers from Japan, from Korea, from America, from Canada. So you will get the latest information that exists about blockchain at this Congress. You're very welcome to join us. This is the agenda. I'll leave the presentation with you. You can also check it on the website. And we have a dedicated session, Europe for Blockchain, which will present in more detail what I've explained to you as well. Plus, you will see also all the projects that have benefited from our funding. They will come to Malaga and explain what they're doing currently on blockchain. If you want to join as a civil servant, as I said, it's for free. You've got the link in the PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to register. And if you know startups, also startups that are not in blockchain but technology startups, please let them know that there's a possibility to attend, also to buy an exhibition booth or to be there with an exhibition table. That was it in a nutshell, what we're doing. I hope it was useful, and I'm happy to take your questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Lucas, and indeed it was very thorough a presentation of what the European Commission is doing, and very encouraging to see that Europe is taking the lead also on a number of initiatives. And now for a perspective from the private sector, over to you, Sonia.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, my name is Sonia. I'm here on behalf of the Pillar project. So Pillar is an open source foundation with operations based in London, and we're building a decentralized personal data management platform. Pillar was founded in 2017. We operate a next generation smart wallet and payment network for digital assets as a first step towards creating an ecosystem, a secure and intuitive platform on which users can choose where, when, and with whom their information is shared. We provide digital identity solutions that transform the way we interact with governments, businesses, and local services, and we're currently working with a number of entities to deliver digital identity prototypes and pilot schemes. I help coordinate strategy for the adoption of Pillar's digital identity and personal data solutions by municipalities and corporations in Europe and in the rest of the world. So blockchain has a really transformative role for the public sector and could lay the foundation for 21st century operating system, enabling flexible, secure and high-performing government functions. We can't deny that there's been a lot of hype around blockchain. We've heard over the last few years a lot about different use cases, its cross-cutting applicability, and it is a new policy and governments now need to do the legwork. Blockchain isn't just an IT solution, it's an organizational solution, and it does require a mindset shift. We see success stories in countries like Estonia and Lithuania, where government actively co-leads policy frameworks with the startup community and with entrepreneurs, and where the tech is being developed. We at Pillar have actually worked quite closely with our friends in Lithuania to help set up the Blockchain Center Vilnius to advance the blockchain industry and advance cooperation with the local community there. So the focus of my talk today will be on Pillar's digital identity solution, which we call the Citizen Wallet, and how it can be applied at the government and municipality level. And I'll also give an overview of the blockchain landscape for the public sector and some of the challenges that we've encountered and challenges for the industry as a whole. So there are a few key areas that will benefit enormously with the use of blockchain. The first, of course, is protecting sensitive data. Unfortunately, personal data breaches have become a fact of life. Forbes recently estimated that 4.1 billion records have been exposed by data breaches in the first half of this year alone. In the past few years, we've seen 540 million Facebook users, 500 million Marriott customers, 57 million Uber users, a few years back 3 billion Yahoo users who have had their data compromised. And this isn't just email addresses and dates of birth, it's also credit card details and passport numbers. So it can't be emphasized enough how critical it is that we use the most secure system we have for the 21st century, especially for government being the default record keeper for society and the target of hacks, both public and private. The responsible deployment of blockchain data structures can mitigate and avoid this. So by decentralizing data, blockchain eliminates single point of failure risk. the overall system is less subject to hacking and data thefts. So, for example, data that's needed for basic government functions like tax remittances or license fees can be distributed and shared amongst multiple nodes and secured by powerful cryptography. Blockchain essentially allows government to confidently and securely share data and for it to be transferred between government departments in a multi-stakeholder environment. The second is building trust with citizens. Recent years have shown growing discontent over the misuse of personal data by large institutions, and this threatens to undermine trust between citizens and public institutions. And the percentage of people around the world who trust government is in decline, if OECD reports are correct. Blockchain inherently builds trust through open, transparent, and collaborative networks, and I think that the Decode initiative is a good example of that. Effective identity management will enable citizens to register their identities on an indelible blockchain, send and request credentials, authorize transactions, and securely manage their data, thereby increasing trust in online systems. For example, blockchain provides the backbone of Estonia's e-health program and is able to secure health data on the blockchain. The renowned eEstonia program, which connects government services in a single digital platform, enables vast quantities of sensitive data to be stored securely. Small town called Zug in Switzerland in 2016, they started accepting crypto as payment for public services. They held a very successful e-voting trial powered by blockchain, and they've developed an Ethereum-based digital identity where the citizen essentially self-registers on their ID on an app. This interacts with the... Yeah?
Sorry, just the interpreters have asked if you could slow down.
Okay, sorry.
Because there's the translation going on at the same time.
Yes. All right. Apologies. So the citizen is able to self-register their identity on an app. This interacts with the Ethereum blockchain, and the user is able to digitally connect with the city by scanning a QR code on its website. So these are moving concepts from the drawing board into the testing lab. Of course, these are small. Estonia is a small country, population of just 1.3 million people. Zug is a small town, so we need a scalable solution that suits large populations as well. The third area is reducing cost and improving efficiency. We all know that perennial problems faced by large institutions include the inefficient use of resources, unreliable data, duplication of efforts across various departments and agencies, and inconvenient service delivery. So blockchain can be used to improve process management. It can streamline a host of government solutions, accounting and supply chains, tracking public sector assets, reducing labor-intensive costs. For example, in the UK a few years back, the FSA, the Food Standards Association, or Food Standards Authority rather, used digital ledger technology as a regulatory tool to track the distribution of certain foods. DEFRA, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, has collaborated with blockchain projects to track waste. As was mentioned before, digitizing cross-industry trade to ensure sustainability is exceedingly important. And blockchain can also be used for budgeting and financial management. For example, payments and account systems that use blockchain could provide a permanent audit trail and facilitate faster reconciliation of funds with greater transparency. The Department of Work and Pensions in the UK has also looked into the use of DLT for its payment services to become more efficient. We also have, Gibraltar completely reinventing financial services with bespoke licensing for fintech firms using blockchain, and they've created a blockchain subsidiary of the stock exchange, the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange. And finally, of course, smarter regulation. So onerous and burdensome regulations can harm small businesses that don't always have the money to pay for helpful intermediaries. This encumbers compliance and audit systems as well. So blockchain-enabled smart contracts that are self-executing can be used to enforce certain clauses, frameworks, and policies. If you add in transaction data, then all the compliance information that would otherwise need to be reported is already on an immutable ledger and can be viewed in real time, effectively automating regulatory compliance reporting. it's a bit far off, but in the future, a regulator could perhaps be a node on the blockchain and see everything in real time. So I'm just going to go into a bit of detail and walk you through our digital identity solution, and then I'll go into some of the challenges that we've encountered. All right, so we've already been through the identity problem, costly inefficiency, uncertainty around privacy protections, decline in public trust. The manual ID approach risks forged documentation, that we already know. The automated approach risks a misuse of data, and username and password login mechanisms are no longer as secure as they can be. So the ultimate challenge is for the state to bring a better solution to its citizens by building a strong and trustworthy digital identification mechanism. So the Pillar Wallet provides each citizen with a private and secure environment to store and use their digital identity. Citizens can use their wallet for everyday interactions with government and private sector services. So our solution comprises 3 parts, and the first is enrollment, which is where identity is captured and validated by biometrics. So basically, the citizen will scan the front and back of their ID. The Pillar Wallet will retrieve this information. The citizen will then take a selfie and prove liveness, pass a likeness check, so respond to a request that might ask them to shake their head or blink or something similar. The app will then securely send the national ID card data to a government web service to verify and validate that ID. And the government web service will then create a digital verifiable credential with a cryptographic signature and send this to the citizen's wallet app. The second is being able to own and control proof of your identity, so citizens will easily access and interact with government and also business services using their credentials to log in with our Quick Connect feature. This is essentially scanning a QR code on the government services website, so no more passwords and no more usernames. This will, upon scanning the QR code, the personal data that's required to access that will be displayed, and the user will have to explicitly consent to release that information before they're logged in. And then, of course, users are able to store their credentials in a secure, decentralized storage area. They can see a list of all the documents they've validated with various service providers, so this makes for a much more efficient filing system. All the data is encrypted, and the individual is the only one with the key to unlock it. So, already been over the benefits for government. You know, this is identity verification in a much more time-efficient and cost-effective manner. It's an inclusive solution. It reduces national security concerns around online identity. It's a common wallet app. Uses open standards on the blockchain. This will allow agencies to interoperate. And it's a more efficient use of state resources. And of course, there's reputational benefits as well, being a leader in digital innovation. So for citizens, trust and security, accessibility, this is exceedingly important. Flexible digital identity can make government services much more inclusive, especially for expats, especially for those with mobility issues, people that might struggle to make it to their municipality office or to their closest embassy. So you're able to get things done with the government online, no more standing in queues. Control and consent, also hugely important. We want to empower users to not just control the use of their data, but to actually have a better understanding about the way their data is used. And this is something that's often lacking. There's a lot of uncertainty about how our data is used by large institutions. And ease of use, also very important. For some reason, people often expect a better service from private companies than from their own governments, and it doesn't have to be this way. So how can this solution be applied to government or municipalities? Well, it's important to note that this is a very decentralized solution to identity management. It's validated by government using government ID, but it's owned by the individual. We can't all be blockchain evangelists. For us, this is a step-by-step process. It's about finding the right balance between convenience and efficiency and privacy and civil liberties. We collaborate with stakeholders, whether it's municipalities or businesses, to determine the best solution for each context that ensures regulatory compliance, and in this case, can really complement and uphold the EU's general data protection regulations, and taking into account the particular needs or requirements faced in a particular area. We do work with centralized bodies, and we're very pragmatic about this. For us, it's important to allow an individual to have a dashboard for their digital life. And it's really about determining how to best plug into the existing system in the most frictionless way. So as an example, at the Odyssey Hackathon earlier this year, which Pillar attended, the Dutch Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations ran a project to create a next-generational digital ID solution for adoption throughout Europe, but starting with a few pilots in the Netherlands, in a few municipalities. This was followed by a workshop which brought together key experts, including a number of people from Pillar, to discuss a number of topics that might lead to different implementation guidelines. And in this particular circumstance, the plan was to create a government-owned app, so the enrollment would happen in the government-owned app that contains a digital identity with substantial assurance. It's a single enrollment for all users, and Pillar would, as well as other companies, would operate as identity providers. So we would have a mobile app communicating with the end user, a back-end service to process documents, and an integration layer. So while this arrangement is more centralized, it still serves the need for common customer identity for other service providers. It still verifies documents and personal details against the government authority, and it is still able to share personal data in a safe and secure manner. So alongside the benefits of increased security and efficiency, the user has more choice, specifically a choice about which service they choose to interact with the government layer. And it's also about introducing more competition into the market to provide a better service to users. As well, the individual who uses the Pillar wallet is able to use the same system for both public and private services, whether it's online shopping or welfare receipts. And of course, the independent service provider is confident in the knowledge that the ID has been authorized by government. So choice and interoperability make this a scalable solution. Two other very quick examples. We're working with a non-government entity, an international organization, to implement standardized credentials for volunteers and workers to travel and work across different countries. So this sounds very simple, but it's made much more efficient with the use of blockchain. And we're also working with an airline to communicate biometric data safely in a multi-stakeholder setting. So I'll just finish by going through some of the challenges for the industry and some of the challenges that we've encountered. I think the biggest challenge for blockchain is adoption and governance. It's not the technology. The approach by governments so far has, as it often is with new technology, being quite reactive. So governments need to work proactively, work with startups, and work where the tech is being developed, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, another issue is a discrepancy between the pace at which governments and large institutions can act and the pace at which the technology is being developed. Another angle is that it is sometimes, the nature of things, a blockchain will often need a politically relevant mission in order for it to be embraced by politicians, and that's why we hear about, blockchain being mentioned as a way to process refugees and economic migrants during the crisis in 2015, a way to solve the UK-Ireland border issue. When it comes to something that fits a political narrative, we often hear blockchain being mentioned, but we need some foresight, and hopefully, increased efficiency in some other processes can be politically relevant and a front page headline. Lastly, I think this is a little bit in contrast to what you were saying earlier, but I think, not everybody needs to understand the intricacies of cryptography and the intricacies of what blockchain technology is. Often that's lost on a lot of people, including me. And this is why at Pillar we really focus on user experience and accessibility. The founder of the Odyssey Hackathon said that blockchain will be the next completely neutral digital infrastructure like the internet and like email, and I'm not sort of concerned about what tech is going on when I upload a video onto my phone or when I send an email. So I think we really need to move forward and look at applicability and use blockchain as a sort of everyday digital infrastructure. So I'll just finish by emphasizing the importance of personal data sovereignty, which is something at Pillar that, of course, we really care about. It's not just, our solution isn't just focused on operational efficiency. It's about realizing the wider social value of allowing individuals to regain control of their own personal data. We can't just have efficiency at the cost of privacy. This is part of a global movement towards data sovereignty, and blockchain can really be used as a turning point in the use of the way we use technology in society at large. And it certainly reflects the principles of privacy for all citizens that underpin GDPR regulation. So please come speak with me afterwards if you're interested in ways that blockchain or Pillars digital identity solution could be used to enhance certain services in your own municipality or region. Thank you for having me. I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and likewise, that was also a very complete and thorough picture of how private sector is reacting to this, integrating it into new areas of activity and opportunities. We have about 15 minutes maximum for discussion. There's another event starting here soon after 10:30, so we should try to vacate the room at 10:30. So please, anybody who wants to comment or questions, I would ask you to introduce yourself very briefly, and then you can ask your comment or question in any one of the languages that appear on the screen there. Please. And I think what we'll do maybe is, because we don't have a huge amount of time, is if there are others who want to, we'll collect 3 or 4 questions and comments first, and then do a round. So.
Hello, thank you for being here and for all the very useful information you shared with us. My name is Theodore Galariotis. I come from Greece, from the Greek network on active and healthy aging. And blockchain technology is something that interests our network very, very much. And we really feel positive about it. However, my question is the following. Since 91, when blockchain was originally conceived, the idea was that it was going to be immutable and decentralized and trustless and all those nice things which sound very, very, very positive when it comes to protecting personal identity and digital identity especially. However, when you were talking about trusted networks, okay, how would that work? How would that differentiate itself from just a regular, well-secured database, master-slave database like we have today? Just 10 more seconds, please. As far as yes, for Sonia, you did mention a very nice process of verifying identity and etc. When contacting government, to get things done as a citizen. However, okay. There is such a system which is not based on blockchain. It's just a regular database, I assume, in Belgium, through the EID system, and I think it also functions in Italy and Spain as well, at least as far as I know. And it does work with a microchipped ID card and a personal PIN code, etc. And that opens the whole electronic conversation deal with the Belgian government, and it seems to be really working pretty good. Would blockchain really, and in which domain would it really improve this process? Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Dimanta Ramkute, and I'm coming from Vilnius City Municipality. I'm city councilor there, and of course we're looking very positively into various innovations, and we're always trying to find new ways, new technologies that could be applied. I have a question for Mr. Lucas Repa, about more tools that are proposed by European Commission and maybe funded by European Commission, because, well, you mentioned the Decidim Barcelona, that is co-funded by European Commission, so maybe you could share more projects that you're currently working with. And of course, a question for Sonia as well. It's a bit for me unclear. What is the difference between Citizens Wallet that could probably also organize participatory democracy and the app that is currently being used by Barcelona? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, please.
Good morning. I'm Judith Stoll from Regional Government of Catalonia, and I would like to ask to Lucas Repa if there is any project in circular economy. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question of my own, which is slightly related to the first one. It's not the first time that we hear technology that's going to save the world and make the world a perfect place. And very recently, in historical terms, we've had such a technology, which is social media, and everyone thought it was going to be absolutely wonderful. And it does have truly wonderful aspects to it, but it has unleashed demons and monsters online, which are actually poisoning the online environment and really destroying people's lives. How can we be so sure that, well, we know there are criminals out there, for one, criminals. We also know that there are people who are always trying to use a tool for their own benefit to the detriment of others without necessarily being criminals. So with new technologies, one has to imagine oneself as a criminal or as someone who wants to abuse it to try to preempt and prevent such actions from happening. So how are we, and this is a question to both of you, how confident are we that the promises, the positive promises of blockchain technology will not be abused? Thank you.
Questions, 2 or 3 questions directed at me. How will blockchain improve on existing processes that are secure and that work well? Of course, there are different ways of doing this, and one way does favor centralization, but centralized systems, I think, blockchain provides decentralization, and centralized systems are inherently fragile. With blockchain, there's no single point of failure, and also, most governments are, to a certain extent, naturally decentralized in that different departments can be quite siloed. What we propose is to leverage blockchain to ensure standardization across platform, to ensure a common layer. Our particular solution introduces competition into the market. It introduces user choice and therefore a better service for citizens, as well as the ability to use our particular citizen wallet, which, identity management is just one aspect of that. In the future, there could be local e-voting and so on and so forth, but the ability to use this for both the public and private sector. Like I said, there are solutions that might seem secure, but data will leak. Data is the new oil. It's not secure for it's continuing. We're in a multi-stakeholder environment. If it's internally in one department, the system might work fine. But in a multi-stakeholder environment, it's not secure for the individual and it's not secure for the state. The question, what was the question that you?
Mine was about how confident are we that the criminals or people will not find a way to abuse it?
Well, yes.
That's a difficult question to answer, but is it being incorporated into the planning and to the design of blockchain projects and initiatives?
So I'll work my way through, starting with the question of the chair about the demons, and then I come to Theodore about the question on the difference of the database. So I think we shouldn't be naive and believe that there is any technology on earth that could not be used also to do bad things. I would be very naive if I would stand here and guarantee to you today that blockchain technology is that one technology. Artificial intelligence can as much be used for good things, for fighting Alzheimer, as it can be used to drive a drone and to strike for military purposes. So let's not be naive. But what we as public policymakers have to ensure is that the framework that guides the development of technologies is set in a way that's in the best interest of citizens. And this is where governance comes in. So governance of blockchain systems is extremely important. And the INATBA that we have created, this International Association of Trusted Blockchain Applications, is striving to develop best practices for the governance of very decentralized blockchain networks. Bitcoin, when it was created in 2008, was an attempt to disrupt the banking industry, right? So it was something anarchistic. Satoshi Nakamoto wanted to provoke the banking sector. It was the depth of the financial crisis. Wall Street had ripped off the average citizen, and he said, I'm going to declare war on banks. This is a payment system that can work completely without banks. And he proved that it works. Unfortunately, criminals quickly discovered that this is a wonderful tool to ship money around the world without being tracked. So it took a year or two until law enforcement agencies had geared up the technical knowledge, and they are today in a position to trace back blockchain transactions in the world. They were not in that position when the Bitcoin was invented. So I think with every technology, you will always see that the criminals will try to use the technology for their ends, and the law enforcement agencies will try to be as fast as they are, or nearly as fast as they are in preventing that. But that shouldn't prevent us from using the technology as such, right? That was my question on the demons, my answer to the demons. Theodore, what's the difference to a database? I think Sonia has very well explained that we have no single point of failure. It's more robust against cybercrime, against hacking. It gives you an immutable trace of where data come from. And in particular for the health sector, we think that is a big asset, because our health data today are fragmented in many different data sources. One hospital may know a lot about it, another hospital may also know a lot of it. They don't share the data, they might not even share them with the ministry. How do you fight Alzheimer? You need to have a critical mass of data on this very exceptional disease to train your machine learning programs. Algorithms need to be trained with a mass of data. If you can't compile the data, you can train your machine learning program. Where do the data come from in Europe? They come from many fragmented sources. Do you think you could convince all the hospitals in Europe to pool their data into one single database? Who would control this database? They will never cooperate. Also because it's not in their commercial interest. Why should they give away their precious data? With a blockchain, you can say everybody keeps their data. We are going to allow the analysis by researchers on aggregated data that are anonymized, that are taken from different sources for training machine learning programs. We trace back where the data come from. We know exactly how many percentage of the data comes from this hospital, from that. We can have a program that calculates exactly who is going to be monetized for which data, how much. You can have even a smart contract that pays out automatically with tokens to the hospitals as a reward. So the potential of this technology to bring together data that are fragmented is enormous. The problems we face today, as Sonia said, is a trust issue. People need to start trusting the technology. And we need the governance that ensures that these decentralized blockchains are run in a way that's in line with our values and our norms. Diamanta, your question on the funding of Decode, Share More projects. I'm happy to share with you and with anybody who's interested an overview of the projects we've been funding. We have around 150 different projects that we've funded with public money, with Horizon 2020 money. I don't have them in my head from the top of my head. I can tell you that they are as diverse as you can imagine. But we certainly have also, to come to the question of Catalonia, examples for the circular economy. I mean, wherever you have supply chains, and you also have supply chains in tracing waste and in processing waste, you can use a blockchain to track that. If you have plastic in Malaysia and you don't know where it comes from and it pollutes a river, but you find a QR code here and there that you can scan and you trace that back, it helps you to find the culprit, right? all the idea of sustainability, which is so important to Europe, and we depend on these long supply chains coming from Latin America, from Asia, from Africa, all the sustainability idea can only be implemented if we have a reliable way of tracking products where they come from, and that's where the blockchain technology can really, really make a big difference, we think.
Thank you, Lucas. Sonia, would you like to
Yeah,
add
I'll just,
something? We have to wrap up in 2 minutes, but maybe if you want to add something.
No, that's
go
right.
ahead.
I think we've moved past the a sort of idealism associated with blockchain, and we're very much focused on how it can be applied and how it can improve efficiency. I think in the eyes of a criminal, cash is just as good of a way to launder money or conduct criminality. So I think, you know, it's really about, the challenge is very much, as was mentioned, about governance and not so much about the technology.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you very much, Lucas. Thank you very much to all of you. This is just the beginning. It's a taster of what is going to come. I hope you found it useful, informative, and I hope that you will be able to take something away from this seminar that you will be able to implement in your areas of work or to develop your own knowledge further. As I said, it's just a taster. This is the beginning. We will be hearing about blockchain much, much more in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. For our part, the Renew Europe group in the Committee of the Regions, we intend to continue working on this topic. And as the new mandate of the European Committee of the Regions gets going next year from January, if possible, we will initiate the drafting of a report picking up on what has been discussed here, how blockchain can help to deliver public services at subnational level. So thank you very much once again. You will find on our website, which is on the agenda, if you have the agenda there, you can find our website easily, the presentations. And of course, we're at your service in case you would like any more information about this or about this event, or indeed about our group. So thank you once again. Thank you, the interpreters. And may I remind you, there's another event starting here in a few minutes. So please, can I ask you to vacate the room very quickly? Thank you very much.